The flyer is going to grab my wrists, and the goal here is to get the flyer as high as possible, well, legally. Welcome back to Explaining Acro. I'm Ben and this is Cassandra, and today we're tackling our most requested tutorial, Inlocate to hand-to-hand. This is a skill that a ton of folks really struggle with and is often considered something of a rite of passage. There's a lot of individual variation in both technique and timing. When experienced acrobats are working together for the first time, it often takes a few reps to calibrate this skill.
This video is our attempt to distill the essence of an Inlocate to help you on your journey. If you find this helpful, please share it with other acrobats in your community.
As a base in the Inlocate, I'm thinking about three things: loading the flyer onto my line, throwing their hips, and then receiving the handstand.
As a flyer, I'm thinking about jumping, finding the base's line, and making a handstand.
When it comes to the Inlocate, if you aren't coming off the ground smoothly, everything else only becomes harder. For that reason, we like to start with the loading phase, where the goal is to get the flyer on top of the base.
First, we're going to talk about the flyer's jump. There are many right ways to do this, but as a starting point, I like to have the flyers start with their feet together. And to initiate the jump, we go up on our toes. The goal is for the flyer to jump straight up as high as possible, given these constraints. By having the feet together, we are encouraging a shallow knee bend before the jump, which is helpful because an overly deep bend makes it harder for the base to get underneath the flyer. Coming up on the toes is a nice timing mechanism that also encourages the flyer to rebound into their jump.
As a base here, our goal is to simply augment the flyer's jump. To start, I like to have the base standing up straight with the hands loosely on the flyer's hips. The flyer is going to grab the base's wrists, and now we're both going to be focusing on getting the flyer as high as possible. By having the hands on the waist like this, it removes the need to worry about finding the hand-to-hand grip and allows both of us to focus on just getting as high as possible. I'm not just lifting my flyer overhead, I'm getting ready to throw them. Getting low enough can be a bit of a challenge depending on proportions. There are a few levers that we can pull here. For flyers, we can try bending less and adding a slight backwards direction to the jump. Bases can try staggering their feet and using more of a B-stand squat or lunge pattern in order to get underneath the flyer. For really big height discrepancies, we might need to accept that the flyer won't get all the way on top of the base until the base has partially stood up. This is okay as long as we are still both focused on helping the flyer jump as high as possible. The next thing we like to introduce is to actually throw the flyer at the top. The base is trying to throw the flyer as high as they can, and the flyer is actively throwing themselves off of the wrists. This intent is a key component to making your actual Inlocate feel smooth. The most common error I see with bases during this skill is decelerating as they straighten out their arms. If you do this, your flyer is going to be stuck doing a press handstand instead of an Inlocate. What we want to do is focusing on following through and throwing the flyer's hips as high as we can. If you're still struggling to get height on this drill, the answer is often strength training. We have free beginner programs for bases and flyers on explainingacro.com, but if you want to do a bit more targeted approach, for bases we can be mostly focusing on things like front squats, push presses, and thrusters. Now it's time to introduce the hand-to-hand grip into the equation. Having a full hand-to-hand grip in the starting position isn't always practical and can feel not really comfortable on the flyer's shoulders. I find that most folks have success here by starting with loose contact on the flyer's wrists, and as the base squats and the flyer jumps, the grip gets established mid-flight. The base's objective here is again to throw the flyer's hips as high as possible. At this point, we are no longer throwing straight up, but ever so slightly in front of us.
Flyers need to jump as high as they can, but also be in a position where they can push into a handstand. If the elbows are bent or the hands are behind the butt, it's not in a position to succeed. While the base may initiate the tempo, the flyer should ultimately be responsible for where they place their hands. For the hand placement for this skill, I'm rounding my shoulders a little bit and pushing my arms down.
Once the load and throw are happening consistently, the butt up is our favorite skill for making progress on the Inlocate. As a base, I'm trying to throw my flyer's hips high up into the air. I'm leaving my arms there and waiting until the flyer starts to press back down until I lower them.
Flyers should be focused on jumping as high as possible and then aggressively pushing and rounding forward as they feel the push from the base. We want to focus on pushing the hips high and then controlling them back down. This is going to build strength and control that will directly transfer to the full Inlocate. It's important in the Inlocate to try to handstand in front of the base. From my starting position, I'm aiming my hands a little bit in front of my feet. If I think about hitting the handstand by the base's shoulders, I'm going to be too far back in this skill. A lot of people use Inlocate to shoulders as a progression. And although this is helpful for building a sense of safety and confidence, it's mechanically the opposite of what we want to be doing. In the butt up, we are already having everything in the right position, and all we need to do is finish with the legs in order to finish that Inlocate. However, when we go to shoulders, we're throwing our center of mass too far backwards to actually handstand.
So as the spotter for the Inlocate drill, I am going to place myself in front of the flyer to prevent any forward motion or downward motion so that the flyer does not faceplant to the ground. I'm going to stay close to the skill, but far enough where I do not get hit during the actual skill itself. And I'm going to be very present with my arms, guarding at the arm and the shoulder. So notice I took a step in when they were doing the skill to go closer to the flyer and be very present, and my arms went up so that I could at any point grab the flyer if needed, slowing the descent if there was any collapse or forward motion to the ground.
Notably, if the flyer is going off the back, I'm still holding onto their hands and the flyer is heading towards their feet, so we're able to control the landing.
At this point, it's time to finish the handstand. I'm making sure to get a good jump, push down slightly in front of the base, and aggressively get my hips over my shoulders.
I'm still throwing the flyer's hips, but now I'm also responsible for receiving the handstand. As I receive the flyer in the Inlocate, I'm looking to keep the weight in my hands constant. In particular, I'm not looking to snap or jerk the flyer down in order to help finish the rotation. While it can help rotate them a little bit, we don't like it for a few reasons. The first reason is that as a base, if I want to throw something as high and hard as possible, I want to have a follow through. And I often see people cutting their throw short in order to make this rotation happen.
The second consideration is that this can be a terrifying experience for the flyer. It can feel like the ground is being ripped out from underneath us and can result in a rough landing, which can hurt our wrists. We want our acro to look smooth and powerful, not jerky.
Inlocate timing can vary drastically depending on the individuals involved in the skill. All other things being equal, a base with shorter legs is going to stand up a lot faster than a base with longer legs. This means that a flyer has to wait longer to start pushing into their handstand on a taller base than a shorter base.
Getting your hips over your shoulders in the Inlocate is a common sticking point. It's tricky because when you're hitting the handstand, your ankles are slightly in front of your wrists. This means that you have about a quarter more rotation than you typically would when jumping into a handstand from the ground or your base's shoulders. Here are a couple of our favorite drills to help generate this extra rotation.
This is a very simple drill in which the flyer assumes a plank position with their feet on a bench, ball, bed, or in their base's hands. From here, the flyer is just going to pull their hips on top of their shoulders actively while trying to not let their shoulders come back too far over their wrists. The focus here is just on building the control needed in order to get the hips over the shoulders. This is a magical drill that we learned from two-time sports acro world champion Arthur Davis III. The flyer is going to do a forward roll and then immediately jump into the handstand. I like to cue the flyer to smack me in the belly with their butt so hard that it makes a noise. I think this drill works because it forces additional rotation past just jumping into a handstand, with the added emphasis on smacking the base's belly, really enforcing the speed of the rotation. Boom. Another thing I can do here as a base is that I can help grab the flyer's legs and really help speed up that rotation. This will not only help them learn the path into the handstand, but also improve their ability to quickly find that position over time. Inlocate to extended hand-to-hand is similar to the regular Inlocate. Before attempting this, your Inlocates to low should be extremely consistent, and the flyer should be able to pause at the top of the butt up with their hips on top of their shoulders. To finish an extended, there's two things that we need to keep in mind. The first thing is that the base is going to need to move their arms back slightly after throwing the flyer's hips in order to receive the flyer in extended hand-to-hand.
The second thing is it takes a lot more effort from the flyer, particularly to finish the handstand. Other than just trying the Inlocate to extended, we really enjoy this L-basing drill. It is definitely harder than an Inlocate to low, but we find that it really helps clean up the low Inlocates and translates extremely well to the Inlocate to extended. I'm starting by standing in front of the base's hands, and I'm going to bend and then jump into my handstand.
As a base here, I want to feel constant pressure from the flyer. I might ask them to bend a little bit so that I have weight in the hands as we start. We're going to breathe together. I'm going to give a little bit of a bend, and then I'm going to throw the flyer's hips into the air. It's natural that to help the flyer finish their handstand, I'm going to move my hands from more towards my belly button to slightly more towards the head. This is the same action that's going to be happening in our Inlocate to extended.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Inlocates are a really tricky skill. If there were cues, drills, or progressions that worked for you, let us know in the comments below. And if you want personalized feedback or see us cover a skill in the future, let us know in the comments below or find us on Instagram at Explaining Acro. Until next time.